what's going to make this song kick is not necessarily complexity in lots of chords or that, but it's going to be in layers. Layers are going to give that building feel. That's why in her vocals, we have tons of different stacks here. Like I've had her double certain parts, ooze, then made her say another line, made her do the same ooze, but an octave lower to thicken it. So it's going to be the stacks. Hey, it's Mike Myers from the Songwriting for Guitar podcast. Before we jump into this episode, if you're a songwriter, guitarist, and you're looking to advance your skills, gain confidence, and monetize your craft, be sure to check out songwritingforguitar.com for all our free resources. So let's jump into this week's episode. So this was with a new collaborator, Tabitha Meeks. And I was telling AJ, it's really weird because I didn't think we were a good match, because she reached out to me and I listened to her stuff and I was like, oh, that's interesting that you chose me, because I'm not really kind of like, this isn't my sweet spot, my genre, my zone of genius. Because a lot of her stuff is, she describes her music as fun millennial vibey 70s grandma. And I was just like, man, I was like, well, let me listen to some of this. And like her new single, Sugar Daddy, I love, but that's something I don't think I can produce.
I don't want a baby. I could foster a cat. If I wasn't allergic, I'd be happy with that. I thought I was lonely, but it was a headache.
Like all her stuff very like,
with the money I earned, I check up on my stocks. Still got a lot to learn. And if I get cold,
there's another one that's called Faking It.
Start cooking at home. Are you out just for faking it? I hope you're all for.
But what was really interesting, she was like, I want to do something dark and cinematic. And I was like, okay. So I could see why she went with that, because she was like, I heard you on, again, this was what's kind of cool when you do have your music placed. In my case, it's the artist, but if you Google and then you do the search and you do the IMDb, it'll come up like produced by so-and-so. And so she was like, oh, that's who I want to try to work with. And it just so happened that she's based in Nashville. I'm based in Nashville. She works with North Star Media, or is one of their artists signed to North Star Media. I've worked with a ton of North Star Media. So it was kind of like a cool meeting in the middle. So since she wanted to do something orchestral and kind of like dark cinematic, I was like, here's what I want you to do. If you could send me an idea of what you're thinking, and that way I can just kind of see, are you landing in that area, or I know kind of where to go. Since this is a new write, I don't want to throw something that's, okay, this is going to be you, because I still want it to be authentic, but I want to see like what realm is she going to take it in her mind? Where is she going? And what was really cool is she sent me two ideas, and this was the idea that I really liked.
One eye open, one eye shut, running out of all my luck. Feel the beating in my chest, no crystal ball to see what's next. Sound the alarm, try to stay calm, down to the wire. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
And as soon as I heard that phrase, where there's smoke, there's fire, I was like, oh yeah, that's perfect. I was like, great, cool. And even the ahs that she was doing, the ahs, I was like, oh, that could be like background, almost like a loop. Chords I didn't have an issue with. And basically, to me, I was like, she's basically almost has a full song, because really she's got a first verse. This is her chorus. We're going to probably keep the same length as the second verse. I really don't think we need a bridge vocally. It needs to be more of a hook bridge. Like we're saying one phrase, we're saying one particular thing that is the the anthemic hook, and then I could see it just like suddenly crescendoing and back down to a very quiet chorus. So I took very quickly what she did here, and before she came to my studio, I was like, okay, let's just build the bare minimum of things so that when she gets here, I can loop a section. And again, this is where a little musical theory helps. She was in C sharp, which I was like, that's interesting, C sharp, or in this case, E major, if you want to do the, so kind of switching in between those two. But that's what I kind of liked about it. And she said later on, she tried it in C, but it was too low and it just felt weird, but C sharp just worked really well. So cool. And this is what I kind of went with as the baseline feel, so that when she came here, we had something to write to. But this was where I felt like this was enough. This is where I could be like, okay. And with MIDI, I could also like adjust it because I wasn't sure what speed. I was kind of going off her voice memo, which wasn't a metronome. I was like, I kind of like this, where this is going. And from there, that's all we had. It's only as we were kind of building this out, we decided we're not going to have a big first verse. We're going to keep it pretty quiet. It's going to drop out, and we're going to have a slowly building second verse, because it's not very long, her verses, so there was no need to cut it. Again, same thing. It's only when we get to the second chorus we decided like, oh, I need a rise, and then we need to figure out like at least get a pattern for the drums to see if she likes it, and then I can go deeper and then start to build it out. That's where we got it. Crescendos, goes down. I think the minute marker we hit is 2:35, and we were both like, awesome. That's where we want it. That's great. That's a great time. Let's just end there. And she was like, you know what? I feel pretty good about this. Can I just record all my vocals while I'm here? And so we recorded all of her leads, all of her doubles, all of her quadruples, her secondary. She has an ad-lib track. We did the oohs, the harmonies, everything. She just knocked out because she was like, I'm kind of in the moment. I just want to sing it. I don't think me going away is going to do anything. So I was like, cool. So that's all there. I haven't really touched that because I didn't really build out the track. So it's there for when I'm ready. But right now I have to build more of this out and kind of decide on some sounds. First thing, I think the easiest thing for me is actually going to be building out the big part, because that's pretty much the most intense section of the song. Everything else, like here, it's drones, it's swells. This was actually something I got from AVA, and it's just called, it's just their cinematic pack, and it's more trailerized, and it has some really cool drones. Again, this drone, I think I have a high pass filter on because it was just hitting in a way I didn't like. It's okay. But I just enjoyed just that drone underneath. And I think that's what I was looking for, because her piano has, she's going, so there's lots of movement, lots of movement, lots of movement. There's got to be some footing in those verses. Did you come up with a chord progression? Sounds like it. Yeah, you know, I just went off of what she had here. So as soon as I found out she was in C sharp, I was like, okay, so the only time that the chords really, she didn't have anything during the verses. So I just decided, okay, well, I think it was C sharp I have on the bass, and I just have it descending down B, and then I go to G sharp. I open, I shut down. And the reason I go to G sharp, so when we get to the payoff of her chorus, which starts on A, tell me alone, if I did A too early, the chorus wouldn't have lift. It would actually feel pretty flat. It'll just feel like we've heard that already. And then I'd have to think about how do I maneuver around and add more chords to come back to A. So the better way was just to eliminate it from the verses altogether, so that when you get to that chorus, we just have a nice descending pattern going all the way. And honestly, I didn't even think, pretty much the majority of the chord progression I kept simple and didn't overthink. She didn't seem to disagree. In fact, she said she prefers when writing not to play piano. I assumed she would want to, because in all her pictures, her Instagram name is Piano Tabs. So I was like, cool, she'll want to play piano. And she goes, I don't like playing piano because I make it complicated. She was like, I have a jazz background, so I'm always playing these funky chords that just don't fit and they just don't work. So I just like focusing on the lyrics and the melody. And I was like, sweet, because I simplify, and that's exactly what I did. I think this is it. That's it. I just kept it very simple, no more than 4 chords. Because to me, what's going to make this song kick is not necessarily complexity in lots of chords or that, but it's going to be in layers. Layers are going to give that building feel. That's why in her vocals, we have tons of different stacks here. Like I've had her double certain parts, ooze, then made her say another line, made her do the same ooze, but an octave lower to thicken it. So it's going to be the stacks. So I want to take a look at what I have right here at the start of this build. So let's take a look at these drums. So these ones are heaviosity, and I kind of like it that I accidentally put it on the wrong pack. I meant to actually put it on the damaged kit. So there's there's 3 sections within damage. I usually hit assemble designer, but I accidentally hit kit designer, and it gave me this pattern, which I honestly loved, because I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but I really like it because, I don't know, it just sounds different. It's fuzzy. So I like that. But what I want to double is some of the tom patterns that are happening, or at least the low kick tom hits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste it down below, but I need to eliminate some so I could bounce the audio and start replacing these with bigger cinematic sample sounds. So we're going to get rid of that. Yeah. I think I'm good then. I think that's everything. Yep. Cool. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take this one right here and we're going to bounce in place, and I'm going to call this Tom Sample Sounds. Cool. Excellent. I can get rid of that. I don't need it. And now what I'm going to do is, one of the things that I think is probably the best investment I ever got, which is Steven Slate's Trigger. And again, Trigger just triggers samples, hence the name Trigger, which I love. It reads the transients. So the first thing I just want to do is to make sure it's reading all the transients. So if it has those little red markers, that means it's reading all the little transient symbols. And those red markers are going to essentially trigger my samples. So if I put 7 in here, it's going to trigger them all to play at that precise moment. And that's what's going to start to create more of a bigger feel, because it's essentially triggering 7 different sounds at once to play together and act as one. And I can use this board as a mixing board. I can go in here, I can detune one of the samples, I can lower it down, I can blend them. Back in the day, I used to line samples all in a row. So I would have like 7 samples all trying to line them up. And that's such a pain. This is way easier. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go with think I want to go with that sound cinematic. Let's see, that sound. Boots and claps. I want Mammoth Deluxe. That's what it is. That's their signature kind of like pack. And that's where I want to go into cinematic toms. And let's go with large toms. So here's what it was so far. But now with this, like that, let's go with some kicks just to beef it up a little bit more. Oh, I like it. Let's move some of these toms back just a little bit. And if you're wondering what is our reference, because that's what's going to be asked, I was aiming specifically, especially in the plugins that I'm going to be using for kind of like a Tommy Prophet flurry style track. Because a lot of the things I'm going to be using in here from Heaviosity, Spitfire Audio, 8Dio, pretty much that's his go-to when it comes to his cinematic style of production. Let's listen to where we are. Cool. I think I need to do the snares as well, because if I'm beefing up those kicks and with toms, the snare hits suddenly feel a little empty. So that's where I have to go in and go ahead. My kicks. I think these are my snares. Yep. There we go. Cool. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to bounce this in place, and we're going to call this snare samples. It's so funny because I think like 4 years ago, what would have taken me like like an hour and a half to try to line all those samples at once and make sure that they're clean and they're faded. Now that has cut down to like less than 10 minutes. It's funny how you sometimes make things harder than they actually need to be. Okay, so let's throw trigger on here. And let's just make sure transients are being read. Yep. The one thing that you have to watch with trigger is the sensitivity and detail. Because if let's say I went to detail and I went something like this, all the little after echo sounds that transients have, like for instance, you'll notice like there, if I did this, and let's say I boosted the sensitivity and the retrigger, it would read some of these other little bits right here that are not supposed to be triggered by the sample. So you're just going to get this like all over the place. So that's why I just check the detail before I add any sample. So that way I'm not stunned by an overwhelming sound of just like a barrage of like snare hits all at once, which I don't want. But I think we're good because everything is pretty clean on the hits, which I love. Okay, so let's go into settings again. And again, this is not anything, whatever samples you have, I'm using that sound Mammoth Deluxe, which is just their sample pack of huge cinematic sounds. I don't know if I want let's go with snare reels. I don't think I want snare filth. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay, let's take a look. And this is where you can use things. I just want to detune these just a little bit because they're a little bright. There we go. Let's see if this is matching. So let's listen to everything that we have. I don't like that. So I think I'm going to eliminate this right here. I also want to get rid of that because I just don't like that that kind of single hits. Doesn't work. I know some people do like tuning their toms to whatever key the song is in, and I think that's really cool, but for me, I haven't, and I don't think it's necessary unless it is a heavily, I guess, like drum focused and vocal song. Like it's really dependent. Like there's minimal instrumentation. That's it. I think the concept is cool, but I don't know if that's really the best use of my time. Like if it would make a difference. Maybe it would, or maybe it wouldn't. There we go. Well, I kind of like that. Let's add one more thing. It needs something. I don't think it's snare. Let's go. Let's actually throw a dark tom in here. Okay. So I'm going to take that from here and let's start building out. What is this? This is a low. Okay, so we have a violin. I don't think I want a violin. Let's take a listen to, I want to build out some of the low end before I build any more drums. And going through here, I thought this was a bass violin, but now that I see it's a violin, no wonder it was pretty empty. So let's go with the bass violin. Cool. I like that. Let's duplicate this and let's go with a tuba. Again, tubas are underrated, but they add a really cool low end for like orchestral stuff. It just adds a really just try that right there. Same thing on the next one, so I don't have to necessarily worry about that completely. Let me just check that aftertouch really quick. Yeah, right there, I want to get rid of. Okay, I like that. And let's just make sure these line up. So let's go midway now. So we've had a bass and we got a tuba. Let's go with cellos. Let's start right there. And let's go more long. Maybe a little lower. Cool. I like that better. And then we're going to do that again. And then we're going to take that there. Let's back out what we got so far. So let's take that trailer sound that we have here. And let's go with hits. Because there's got to be, like, if we're building it up, that first hit has to be a little bit more powerful. Yeah. Let's try that. Like that. And then let's mess with that too. Let's just make it a little. And let's take that. We'll throw that down. So we have. Let's not double this one. Let's take a look at we have here. Because I think I need another rise, but I don't know which one. Let's see. here. Let's try that. See how these, trying to find the combination of both that work well. Okay, let's start this one. Let's listen to when this one starts. Actually, the best thing to do probably would be, let's just bounce this in place. We'll call this trailer 2. And then we'll bounce this one in place and we'll call this trailer 1. Because I like this first one. Because if I can see the transients, it'll be easier to line up. And we'll just take this. And I'm just going to move these up here. And I'm going to grab these and create a little track stack so that these can start going out of sight. And we'll just call these MIDI. I think for Logic, this is probably one of the best settings to have for your workflow is track stacks, because right now I don't want to see lead vocals, but when I do, just being able to do this is super helpful to just look and then see. But when I'm done, to just like get rid of. The same thing with my MIDI. I don't want to delete the MIDI I have, but as I'm bouncing it in place, I don't want to see it because it's just useless. So let's go into really in detail where these trailer sounds start. See, they all start a little bit differently. The first one starts right around here, where this one starts a little bit later. So what I want to do is get maybe this one to start right here. There we go. Let's also make this one rise a little bit slowly too. Better. Oh. So let's take this one and let's just boost this up a little bit. And we'll do extra 2 and extra 2 for this. And then we'll just create a bus for our trailer sounds, and we'll just call this Rise Bus. And that's where I'm going to throw in lots of reverb and maybe some echo. See how this sounds. The endless decay just keeps on going. Which kind of works because like there's such a massive, like the drums are going to be hitting, so it's not like I could go and like, oh, let's decrease this, but I think I would add a cool effect over top of it. But I do want to add Echo Boy Jr. on this to just kind of create a kind of a ping pong effect as it's rising up. You know what? That's probably one of my favorite things in Sergeant Pepper at the end is the climax of A Day in the Life, just that massive build. But even just like how George Martin orchestrated it to just like at that perfect time is so good. Okay. Let's see. So let's start taking start doing some stuff with it. And again, this is where I do kind of like a little bit of mixing on the go, because if I don't do a little mixing on the go. I might build a little too much where as I start to add compression, I start doing things, suddenly I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like I just needed to boost this a little bit. And it kind of gives me an idea of where everything is currently. So let's start with the tom sounds. Maybe a swell needs to come back in over there, or a big hit at the end. Yeah. So like a I like that better than a swell. Let's make sure it hits again. Cool. That works for me. How am I on the time? Okay, so let's go back to just the piano line in the end. Now, I have down here her lead stack that's doing the ha's. Because I want to create this as the hook, almost like if I went into arcade and pulled this from. Okay, so let's take this. Let me just mute the piano really quick and just listen to it again. Now, these I did tune because I was thinking in my head, I want to kind of use this as a loop going throughout at various moments. And I don't want to treat it like a vocal. So I have what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these and I'm going to kind of condense them into one. So I'm just going to call this vocal loop. What it's going to do is it's going to take all of it now and it's a vocal loop. Like that. Okay. Let's add some compression. Let's just mess with it so it sounds kind of, oh no, it's a little bit different. So okay, so I want to take that last note that I hit. I want to take that out. So. There we go. Cool. Because she doesn't end on it. And so I want to kind of copy that. Yep. And then just get this to go. Let's see if I can keep this going too. my own loop, if you will. And then there we go. Let's go in and let's use Avalon. Let's go with this. Let's go with that. I think I may want to play with which I think you can do this in any DAW, but in Logic, it's called latching. This is where it's like, I'm just going to play around with the EQ while it's playing and just like give it like a little sweep effect, like play it like an instrument almost. You can go in and I'm just going to go to latch and we're just going to go to the single pass EQ. And I'm just going to, while it's playing, yeah, it's just kind of like an instrument, which I think is kind of cool because it just adds just a sweep effect going through. And I don't think we need it here because that's where we get to our chorus. I think it's right here where everything starts again. Yeah, I love that latch effect. I think I use it a lot, but it just adds I don't know, it's just something that makes the sample feel like it's going back and forth. It has different character. I'll probably go on here too and add Echo Boy Jr. to do the same thing, to add kind of a back and forth that it just feels like it's just like ping-ponging between left and right speaker. Okay, so let's just back off with everything we got so far. Okay. I'm just going to take this piano that I have and I'm going to bounce it in place because I don't really have any issue with it. I'd rather not have the MIDI dragging. So we're just going to call this piano lead. And then that way I can just throw this up with all the other MIDI. go with this drone up here and let's do the same thing. Let's just bounce this in place. Drone. The reason I bounce everything in place again is just like if there's a lot of MIDI, it does wear things down and your CPU will drag completely. You'll have your jaw will stop and crash. And since we've agreed on the BPM, the sounds were not an issue for her. I can start just committing to sounds and committing to things. So I can just start doing that. It's so much easier. Right now it's inactive. So right now it's all in mute. So it's just, there's nothing there. I just have it on standby in case, because there have been times where I was like, cool, I don't need it. And then I delete it. And then they go, hey, could you go back and change that? And I'm like, yeah. And then I have to go back and play the part again. So it's like, I just keep it in storage just off to, in case I need to, or, you know, for any reason, but most of the time you don't have to. But it's inactive right now. It's on mute. But what's great about Logic, all you do is just click mute and unmute, and there you go. It's all ready to go again. But it's all inactive, which I love. Okay, so let's go with this drum. Cool. Let's take a look really quick. Maybe one more kind of like droney kind of sound. Be good. What time is it? Okay, not bad. Let's see if I can. Yeah, her vocals are really good. Like I'll show just a little bit before I again did this last thing I think I'll add. She, you know, she had some really good vocals that I mean, not surprised. I knew she was a great vocalist, but what was great was just seeing her probably are right together in the tracking of vocals. We were maybe like an hour and a half or 2 hours total between doing this, but she was really good at doubling her vocals, tripling her vocals, quadrupling her vocals. She was very easy at finding the harmony, finding the third. She could double it. She could do ad libs. So it was like, she was very tight as just the top liner. Her main gig is basically performing all the time. So she has a cover band and all she does is covering, and she has a jazz trio. So she is just constantly working her voice. So she really knows how to access all those different areas, which makes this part just like way easier. The ahs were one, but even the, you know, our vocal. Even when we get to like the chorus.
Try to stay calm. We're down to the wire.
And then variation for the second one.
Try to stay calm. We're down to the wire. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's smoke, where there's smoke, where there's smoke. Where there's smoke, where there's smoke, where there's smoke, where there's smoke.
No, these aren't tuned at all. These are all dry vocals. But that's what was great about it is, you know, if I'm a real stick, if you go in and you look at each one of these wave files, she has matched them pretty much perfectly in terms of just like the transients, like her doubles, her triples, her quadruples are all like, if I didn't have these labeled, I could just look at the wave file and know like, oh, these two are the same. These two are the same. So that means that's the double of this one. That's when you know you have a really good top liner. And so it was really fun to work with her because she was super easy, very open to ideas, and she liked the direction.
Where the smoke is, one eye open, one eye shut, one eye open, one eye shut.
That was probably the most fun we had, was that part, just the bridge, because we were just like, oh, let's do this first hook. And then we really liked how she was like, what, where there's smoke, where there's smoke, where there's smoke. And we were like, oh, that's cool. And we were like, can we beat that? And we were like, oh, let's go back to the thing that you say in the verse, which is one eye open, one eye shut. I like that. Let's just say that, and let's just make that a hook, because it's so catchy, but we never come back to it at all. So that when you have this bridge that's developing, I don't know, it's just a lot of different layers, hooks. Like once we have one, we end it, but then we do another one. And you just got this built over top of this pretty massive. Like even now I can hear it. I'm like, oh yeah, once those are stacked and tuned and just like affected, that's going to be bad. That's going to be really good. And again, being the first write, that was the goal. And she was also just like, she expressed, I want this to be something that I would also want to share with someone. Like I'd be okay sharing it. Like, cause she was like, I've been doing sync for like 2 years, and there's some songs I'm like, I don't want to share. Like it's cool, but it's not me. But this feels like sassy and it's badass. This would be great. And if this got on a show, then I could be like, I don't mind sharing that kind of song. So, again, this is where I'll say, if you don't co-write a lot, this is where co-writing is great, because you do not have to, you lean into your strength, they lean into theirs. And then when you work together, it's great. Because I couldn't sing what she laid down. I could give ideas and be like, oh, you should do kind of like, where I'll communicate the idea, like where there's smoke, like do that, just chop it up. She was like, oh, okay, and like this, and it was like, oh yeah, but that sounds way better. Like that's what I heard in my head. But now hearing you sing it, I'm like, oh, that's bad. Now let's layer it, let's double it. And I was like, hey, can you do a harmony? She was like, cool. And I was like, ooh, can you just do the lower third of that harmony and like just thicken it? Yeah. And then we just knew that was, she was excited, I was excited. That was a good write. So even if we didn't do anything with a song, the whole goal is like, did the pairing work well? And was it fun? And did we vibe off of each other? So that's what you should look for in a co-write, is just connection. Don't even worry if it's the first one that you have to get a great song at the beginning, because you may just have a cool ground of relationship that you start building. And then by song 2, song 3, then you get really good songs. Song 1 sometimes is just the introductory one, but this one, it just worked out that it was she had a really cool idea, and I knew where it should go. She was willing to let me take it there. And then she brought her ideas, and there we go. And it'll be a great song. So, all right. So that's where we're at so far. I'll probably go in, I'll probably build some more, if anything, some more strings, and think a little bit more intricately on some horn parts that I want to do. But I like where it's at, because it feels, okay, that's probably as big as I want the percussion side to be. Now I can go in and layer the rest of it, which hopefully doesn't take too long. I think another hour, and I would feel confident that I have a good idea where it needs to be. And then I can focus on vocals, because that's the most important thing. That's probably the most I'll spend my time afterwards, is just making sure everything is tightened up in her vocal, so that we can do a couple of versions. Like we've got this full version, but I'd like to hear one version that's maybe just piano. And then I'd like to give them another version that's just a cappella, because I think that would be really cool as well, because she has that ability. Like I'd want to listen to her voice, just like the stacks of it by themselves. So All right, everyone.
Hey, it's Mike from Songwriting for Guitar. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And hey, don't leave. We got other cool videos you should check out too. Like some of these right here. Oh, that one right there. That's really good. You should click that. Right there. Just click it.